Hey everyone, welcome back to Berlin Noir. Today we're going to be working in an area that we really haven't been for some time now. This is in the north side of the city across the river in Moabit. And we're going to be working on a old prison that is here as well as a criminal court. So I decided to continue kind of taking a break from updating the city center and work in a new area doing something new. This is where we are going to be building that little kind of star-shaped thing there is the prison. And it just so happens that there is pretty much the exact model on the workshop, I believe by Feinbild is the asset creator. And I've been subscribed to this since the very start. And I don't know, I've just been putting it off, never really thought to do it, but I figured now, why not? Like I said, it's been a while since we've been over here. Really, the only stuff that we built on this side is the train station and rail yard. So there really isn't a whole lot of development on this side of the city. So yeah, I definitely would like to start kind of branching out because at least 3/4 of what we've built so far in the city is all, I guess, more southern, south of the city center, maybe southeast, southwest, just in general south. But there's obviously a whole lot to do on the other side of the city, and maybe now might be a good time to do a few things here and there, and so I figured might as well start out with this since we do have the exact asset. Also, another reason that made me really want to do this is the criminal court, which is right behind this, which we get to in a little bit. So I guess I'll wait till we start working on that to discuss that. But basically, brand new asset that someone pointed out to me, and so I just kind of had to use it. I wanted to really use it really badly, so I figured might as well do that. So it was just kind of perfect, everything lined up, and I figured why not? Let's do it. But so here, the one thing we're working on now is just I think some sort of like administrative building, part of kind of the overall criminal court and prison in this area. Part of that building does still exist today, as well as most of this entire complex. Actually, a couple buildings I guess were updated, a couple others must have been destroyed during the war, but for the most part everything is still mostly as it was back in the 1920s. And the prison is still in use, I believe, just as it was back in the 20s as a remand prison, which is different than the nearby prison that used to exist. There used to be two very similar ones, this one here, and then one very, very close directly east. That one was an actual, I guess, correctional facility, or I don't really know the correct terms necessarily, but that's kind of the one where you go to serve out your sentence after your sentence in court. Whereas this prison here, since it's a remand prison, this is where you would go before sentencing or during your trial. So I guess this is perhaps a better condition. You wouldn't be necessarily subjected to really poor conditions as compared to the neighboring prison, especially in the late 1800s when it was built up until I believe 1910, which I guess we can discuss that in a little bit since we're moving on. But yeah, I wanted to kind of lay out this entire area first since it's a lot of stuff going on here. The prison, some administrative buildings, and then this is the criminal court. And this is also the new asset that I was talking about. So I guess this is an unreleased asset. So I had no idea it actually existed. It's not on the workshop, at least publicly. But one of you pointed it out on Discord, which is awesome. Thank you very much. Because this is something I've been looking for ages. Just this general style of architecture and building. Just basically can be used for any sort of court or just any sort of administrative type thing really in the city. It could serve as a lot of different things really. And nothing really existed on the workshop really like this, especially modular, which is what I'd say is most important because, I guess obviously you can plop a building down. It's just a general rectangular shape, call it a day. But there are a lot of buildings like these, so the fact that it's modular will definitely allow me to use this asset in several locations around the city. But so this is again the criminal court, which is right next to the prison here. the Moabit criminal court, and is apparently actually the largest one in Europe, with the most judges and prosecutors here. And yeah, so I definitely had to build it, especially considering this. I just learned of this new assets here, and I definitely enjoyed it, laying it out, kind of following more or less exactly how the building looked. You have all these wings coming off, and then kind of just these small little courtyards and things. But it was definitely really fun, and I don't want to overdo it for sure, but I definitely want to use this asset in other locations in the city. But I guess one thing that I kind of don't like about this asset, and it's really the one and only thing, is that there aren't a lot of options for doors. So the asset that I'm using to make pretty much most of the building here doesn't have any doors or anything, just a bunch of windows. And as you can see at the very bottom, just kind of a stone part that kind of comes out a bit from the building. But the only really options for doors are this, I guess, more of a fancy entrance. Of course, not the very large thing that I plopped down at the very start when we started building this, but just something that has like way too many doors. And it's also not the exact same size as this this one here. So that's also a little weird because you can't really match them up quite the same. Because I do later at the end of once I kind of lay out this entire building and kind of go back and add a few more little details to it because I didn't like. I figured it kind of looked a little too plain and stuff. But I guess yeah, we'll see in a little bit exactly what I'm talking about. But there I initially used the corner building and then the distort function on procedural objects to basically make that 90-degree corner building, a little more closer to, I don't know, 100, 105 maybe degrees. But when doing that, it doesn't keep the shape exactly the same. So you might have saw that it kind of fanned out on the one side. So that really wouldn't have worked because and the walls wouldn't have matched up at all. So I decided just to do what I usually do and just simply use procedural objects and grab all these vertices here as you see in the customization options and just make these perfect corners, which is just, for pretty much the most part, I really haven't found a better way to do this in a lot of, it never fails, I should say, because the distort function is something new that one of you pointed out to me. I didn't know it existed in procedural objects, and it is extremely useful in a lot of cases. But sometimes it just doesn't quite work. Sometimes, whoever created the asset, for whatever reason, the distort function doesn't really behave with it. I'm not exactly sure why, but essentially what it does is just take whatever building it is, no matter what shape or size it is, and just converts it into essentially a cube. So just a plain 3D cube. So that way it reduces it to what would normally be, hundreds or even thousands of vertices to just, what is that, 8 vertices. As you see there, I'm kind of shrinking it down. So it is very useful nonetheless, and I'm definitely going to start using it a lot more now that I know it exists. But it does have its limitations in this short time that I have been using it. I have noticed a little bit. But yeah, so just continuing laying out the kind of the different wings and such, and making kind of more of a larger courthouse, or sorry, not a courthouse, a larger courtyard next to the more central area, that more central building there. But I have to say, I do really like just this general architectural style that's very common in courthouses and all these buildings in the city. Yeah, I don't know. I just like how they look. Just kind of the general facade and the stone and the red roofs. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's just, I really enjoy these types of buildings just as, of course they're courthouses. So I guess maybe if you're from Germany, you just associate them, with court dates and criminals, whatever. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't necessarily think they're that cool looking, but I must say I do enjoy their look. And because we did do a similar courthouse close to Alexanderplatz before, and since, like I said, really no buildings like this existed before, I had to use procedural objects, and that turned out decent, I guess. But compared to this, again, I just really do. I really do like this asset, and how I'm gonna have a lot of options to do buildings like this all around the city now that this asset is available. But yeah, so here is kind of what I mentioned, where I'd kind of finish the entire thing and look at it for a second and be like, I kind of want to add an additional layer to the front. So rather than just having that one central larger building in the very middle and just kind of those plain wings coming off, I wanted to add just a little bit more to the front and have it poke out a little bit. As you see here, what we're doing, kind of making it come out a little bit more from the building. So there's kind of, I guess, 3 different layers rather than just 2. Very small thing, small detail, but compared to what it looked like before, I think it is necessary and a nice little addition. But yeah, I just kind of continued that. Of course, did that on the other side as well. But once I finished that, I kind of want to get back to the prison, because at this point I had everything laid out in this area, at least all the big important things. And then I wanted to get to detailing the prison, since that's where also a lot of the other space is going to be filled in. And so what we're doing here is making the stone walls, so the prison walls here. And they have this interesting shape, which in the end, you'll see that it looks very much like a flower, which I find a little funny. But yeah, nonetheless, I just kind of do like the walls there, how they do go in like that. I think it's a small little thing, but adds a little more detail to it. But yeah, so with this prison here, I kind of already mentioned, but it is the remand prison compared to the one that is next to it, which I decided not to build, since for one, there just really wasn't any room. Just kind of the nature of how the city's developed, since I'm not doing a one-to-one scale recreation of the city. And this area is something that I kind of planned out earlier on, so it's much more scaled down, kind of squished. So because of that, there just really wasn't any room for that other prison, which is probably fine anyways, because I would have just had to have used this exact same asset anyways and just modified it a little with procedural objects, but nonetheless it still would have looked pretty darn similar. So with that, I figured I'd kind of combine elements of both. So since I did look it up, and it said there were no executions most likely here, or I should say at the other prison nearby. But I still figured why not? Let's build a little executioner stage thing, just to add a little detail. And of course the idea for that came straight from Babylon Berlin, the show. So I literally just popped it up on Netflix real fast to take a quick peek of that scene, and I just built the little executioner stage there exactly as it looked on the show, which was definitely fun. I like that little added detail there, even though realistically it wouldn't make sense, as I said, since this is just here. Everyone's here is just waiting trial or in the middle of trial, so of course none of those people are going to be executed. But nonetheless, again, since I'm not building the other prison, I figured I might as well kind of combine the two and add some, I guess, some more of the darker, more depressing elements of the other prison, which prior to, I guess, 1910, I'll throw a picture up right here because it's very interesting, history and, how, prisons used to operate. But what the other prison used to have were these kind of just circular little areas, which were basically, I think it said 20 small little areas in a circle with a central little post for, guards, so you can stand in there and look around, see a 360 view of everyone. But essentially, the prison, basically no one could talk to each other ever. And I guess people used to whisper to each other, in the halls and stuff. So to basically prevent that, they built that circular little thing where they'd stick the prisoners with walls on all sides, so they couldn't communicate during their, I guess, free time, since that's, I believe, where they went during their free time, if you want to call it that. But yeah, I can only imagine what that would have been like. Certainly not very nice. And they did get rid of it, I guess, not too long after they implemented it. So I guess they learned that, hey, maybe this isn't the best thing to do to people, which I guess is good. But nonetheless, they still existed for a short time. and it's pretty crazy that that was a thing back then. But anyways, so this, I guess speaking of circular things, so this thing here, I have no idea what it is. I saw it in the aerial view. There's these two kind of small circular things, very kind of similar like in size to this and in this location, and no idea what they are. I know they're definitely not what I just described, where, like I said, where the prisoners would kind of be placed in here during their free time, so they couldn't speak to anyone. So I know it's not that, but since I could not come up with what it could possibly be, I decided to make this kind of like the area where perhaps someone on death row or something would go before their execution. So I decided, make it kind of grimy, ugly, dirty, very dark and depressing. And then right next to this is where I decided to build the stage for the executioner and all. But yeah, if you have any idea what this possibly could be, because it's pretty clearly present in the aerial view. Two, like I said, two of these kind of small circular things on this side of the prison, which is outside the main prison complex. So I believe this is still within like the general prison area, but it's not within the like the 5-pointed star like prison complex. So yeah, if you have any idea what this could possibly be, let me know, because I'm curious to what it could be. Perhaps I can update it, but yeah, there's a few things which, when I was building this, I couldn't really make out what it was, so I either just ignored it or just, built something else in its place. Another thing that seemed a little strange, though a little less now, since I know it is a remand prison and not, for your hardened criminals that are going to be sentenced to life for many, many years or whatever. But there were a lot of trees in the central prison complex. So the area with the 5-pointed star prison complex thing, there was a lot of trees in the open areas, which I thought would be weird because they're all right next to the walls. And I was like, okay, someone could easily just try and climb up behind the tree and hop over the wall. I'm sure not that simple, but I would assume people would definitely try that. So I placed all the trees as I saw in the aerial view, but I considered, removing them, though in the end I left them there because, again, that's what it looked like in the aerial view, and I was considering getting rid of them. But now that I know that it's, again, a remand prison, so people just waiting trial or during trial, I figured, I'll leave it there. So unless you think it looks weird in the end, because I kind of cut it out since it's just placing trees, nothing very exciting or anything, but you will see it in the cinematics. So let me know as well what you think of that. But so, yeah, so lastly here, this is what I was talking about. So right next to, again, what I'm calling kind of like where a death row person would be, perhaps the night before their execution or something, as illogical, I guess, as that is. This is, I guess, where the execution would take place. So like I said, I copied this exactly from the show Babylon Berlin. So just a small little stage, small little platform, that little table there for the person to lie down, and a basket to catch their head. So very pleasant. And then this thing here, I think it's like I don't know, I forget what it was. I don't believe it was. I'm basically what I'm using it as a bell. So I guess they would ring the bell once the execution was completed. And this here is, as you can see, or I should say was, from tram tracks, just the catenary. But I figured it made for a nice little thing here for the bell to hang on to, since I didn't have to make that out of procedural objects since I came across that. So it worked out. Had to scale it down a few times since I was like, yeah, that's a little big. But I think it looked cool there, and it definitely looks as though it is a bell, and is pretty much exactly how I was imagining this to turn out, and pretty much exactly how it looked on the show. So I was definitely happy with this. And even though, again, it's not realistic because there wouldn't be any executions here in real life, again, since I'm not building the other nearby prison, I'm just going to chalk it up to me combining elements of both in just this one complex. But so lastly here, as we finish up this episode, just revisiting this this front building here at the corner, and just detailing the center area here. Nothing very much, just adding some paths, some trees and stuff. But so that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode. Hopefully you all enjoyed this one. I know we had a couple weeks off since our previous episode of the series. I was busy a few weeks ago, and then the week after that, I just had no creativity going when I opened up the game, pretty much. I just couldn't get going for whatever reason. Happens occasionally, just couldn't get those creative juices flowing, so I didn't want to force anything. And so I just waited until I was feeling a little better and had those, that creativity going again. But we should be fine, resuming regular uploads as per usual. But yeah, so if you did enjoy this episode, definitely give it a thumbs up. It helps the channel out a lot. And if you are new to the channel and you made it this far, then definitely subscribe, as we got a whole lot more coming to this channel. And as well, also, again, comments, what you'd want to see next. If you want to see more updates to the older parts of the city, or if you would like to see more new things built, such as, today, let me know either way, and we'll try and do that, in the upcoming episodes. Either way, let me know, and I will see you all next time.